So the question you've asked, the classification of the Singapore economy according to this major segment do not capture that element which is local content that is not evident in this sector. I think it is very important because if you look at the 50s, the people in the say commerce, which is not here at the present point I'm talking, and in the early days have multiple income by doing two jobs. So if you were doing a day job as a warehouse supervisor or a tongkang fella, you probably carve your niche by doing your hawker stall on the roadside, and that would give you an income, and you differentiated them. But when they moved them into the NEA hawker center, it disappeared. It's not there, see. And then if you look at that, there is a re-emergence of this. Okay, I'll give you an example. Guy Michon focused on this guy who sold $2.20 soy sauce chicken in a hawker center. So Harry Chua, through his center, put 2 million in, gave him 1 million. And what that shows is that the government have not really appreciated the intellectual property and the provenance of the hawker fare, which have taken 30 to 40 years to do so. Now, they have only highlighted certain amount of this through Singapore Food Fair in London, San Francisco, and they go and get the casuarina roti prata guy to go over there, chicken rice and all that. But they haven't quite done it in a way. So if you go to Eric School's latest film, Wantan Mee, which was premiered at the 67 Berlin Film Festival, there are certain of those things that are there. And you can see some of it being emerging. Waki, which is another example at Pekyo, the couple is in the early 70s and have wanted to give up. But fortunately, the food entrepreneur that came in and rescued it. So it positioned the son Kevin in a way.
Okay. So I think this subject of
which is not hit. Not
yeah, right.
evident.
So I won't say camouflage, but maybe of obfuscation as a result of certain ways of presenting statistics that may not bring out the importance of the SME sector, right? So I think this is a very important topic because it's going to affect livelihoods, it's going to affect the kind of transitions that we are going through in the economy, right? So maybe Keong can a little bit about this.
The local sector employs 2/3 of our labour force. The foreign sector employs 1/3. But you take total output. The foreign sector produces probably half or more of our total output, and the local sector half or less.
You talk about local sector, how about you break down GLC and PLC?
That's included in the local sector.
Yeah, but what is the composition?
Oh yeah, so if you take out the so the GLCs, local sector will be 50%. You take out the GLCs, then you're talking about maybe the 30% left. Yeah, something like that. Okay. The leading sectors, on the one hand, the foreign sector, and on the other hand, the GLCs. Now, this is a resource in terms of strategy. This fits into Dr. Goh's worry. Dr. Goh, what was he worried about in 72? He said, if I wake up 10 years later in 1982, or worse still, 1992, and the foreign economy is still so dominant, then something is wrong. Okay, so as you said, by allocating so many resources, both tax dollars and space, and government assistance and support and subsidies to the foreign sector, we have, tax subsidies could have gone into developing a globally competitive hawker industry. Right? The model they created took on a life of its own. EDB was always the supreme organization. It had power to take resources and use from every other organization, but the SME organizations like Spring or don't have that at all.
In my opinion, they have been misguided not to really identify the wellspring of resources that they are. I grew up in the late 50s and early 60s. I could go down to Market Street and I could see the traders in Market Street. Some of them, they only have a work bench, but they were trading in worldwide coffee products, cocoa products, timber, and they only have a few. They don't even have a Rolex.
So what happened was effectively they used regulation to regulate these guys out of business. And what in the old days
they killed them.
Yeah, they did. In the old days when they made an HDB community, how did they get the hawker center there? I'll tell you. First of all, they allowed them to open up on the car park. This was before they built anything. Okay, so all the hawkers that wanted, anyone want to be a hawker, you go to the car park and you do it. So they would watch them for like about a year. Who's left after a year? The market will sort itself out, right? Who's left? And then they'll say, oh yeah, okay, 80 guys left. We'll build 100 spaces. Today, when they build the same hawker center in a new town, they will say, okay, let's have 50 spaces. There's no reason for it. It's just a notion, right? Why? Oh, because we want them to go to the mall. We want them to go to the central mall. We don't want them to, and who owns the central mall? Some REIT lah. So of course these fellas, and then in the HDB center, what do? They say, we're going to open it to the highest bidder. So when you open it to the highest bidder, okay, previously, coffee shop, you have lontong, curry puff, the whole range, right? Thosai and mee pok ta. Now, bid until the rent trebles. You only have zi cha, economy rice. Forget about the lontong, forget about the curry puff, no more thosai, and the quality of the bloody zi cha and all that isn't great. The quality of all the other guys, they were there for generations. We have a ubiquitous barbecue seafood that is cooked in a common kitchen somewhere and brought there, okay? So they destroy artisanal and entrepreneurship. This is just the hawker market. Like you say, what about the cocoa market? What about the trading market? How about every single entrepreneurial activity you can think about has been stunted because, contrary to Goh Keng Swee's worry, they did not try to rectify this. The early dependence of Frederick Davidson was expedient. He needed full employment.
But Goh Keng Swee's view is that he created the LKY, that in order to get to the wider international market, we need globalization. So that's why the entrepreneur sector was allowed to die. And you are right, up to the 1972, the FDI enabled the productivity and the production to get into the wider market. But now, I believe, commerce, in the way that entrepreneur trade existed, is very important for us. I mean, in Singapore, we don't have any food security except for our investment in Guizhou. But even then, that's going very badly. But if you look at the Chinese, they've actually invested in Tasmania, the cattle growing dairy produce, shipping milk in bulk back to China, Riverina and agri-produce and all of that. And so they have taken the estate and they have fiscalized it in not obvious way, which is to really keep costs for the HDB heartland in a controllable state. And they don't even allow the transfer of ownership in this hawker except to direct family members. So a lot of these people have given up the skills.
That's no longer true. You can sell your hawker's license to any highest bidder. That's why a lot of Chinese hawker centers now are run by mainland Chinese, not Singapore.
So that's even worse. So let me continue, and then we'll come back to this topic. Let me just highlight the issues here. One is there has been a systematic suppression of local entrepreneurship at the foreign suppression of local ownership and the promotion of foreign ownership, and we have not got over this problem, this way of operating, this economic strategy, ever since 1972, right? It is still in operation today. Goh Keng Swee, if he were alive, would have tried to shift it over the years, because he foresaw the problems in 72, but he was forgotten, and so here we are now, with all these problems. And let me tell you a few more. I think the thing is that this is where the economy is now, but I think circa 1990s onwards to today, certainly, certain global trends emerge, certain local consequences of this go for growth strategy emerge over 20 years. Now, what were these? The first and most important of this global trend was what I would call the new globalized inequality. Okay, this is a form of inequality that globalization creates in whichever country partakes in it. So this is the US, by the way, this is not Singapore. Okay, but this globalization is done to the labor market in the US. Unless you correct it, going to happen in every single country, including China, including us, that participates in globalization. Okay, and this is what has happened. So let me explain it. I was just on the bottom axis, you see time in the US. So So these are the 70s right up to the 06, middle of 2006, right now. The red line is the real wages accruing to management and business owners. Okay, the pink line is the average wage in the whole economy, and the black line is the average wage of workers, okay, employed people in economy. Okay, so these are all the people that ended up voting for Trump. Okay, and you can see why. See, what they were used to, you know, and you extend this line back, these three lines will follow from the end of the war. But once globalization started in earnest, this is what happened. Not only did you have income inequality, you had a particular kind of income inequality, right? Income inequality, all three lines can go up but widen. But look at the middle line. It has essentially remained where it was in 1970. That means to say people in the US, in the middle, the average middle class person, is no better off than he was in the 1970s, 40 years ago. And the average worker, the blue collar worker, 20% worse off than he was in the 70s. And this has been happening year in, year out, decade in, decade out, election in, election out, until people are fed up of it. Okay, so before Trump, before Brexit, whenever I show this, I say, this is a problem because it is not a problem, just a problem of economic policy. This is a problem of political legitimacy. Why do you think Trump is in power now? Why do you think people voted for Brexit? These people, and a good number of these people, have given up on the system. They would rather see it destroyed and raise it up again because they say that anything is better than what we have. But this is the trend. If you don't, however, I would like to point out that there are certain economies where even though this is a labor market trend, it's not the final trend. There are taxes and transfers that people have transferred. They have institutions that have prevented this from flatlining. So for example, in Germany, because the labor movement is responsible and involved in collective bargaining, they make sure that whatever productivity gains these guys enjoy, these guys partake their fair share. So if you take German real wages, they are here.
But that's because of the strength of the Metal Workers Union.
Yes, Metal Gesellschaft.
Yeah.
Essentially, they lead the collective bargaining process, and it's sufficiently instituted. And not only that, they do enough research, so they don't ask for too much, right? They ask for just enough. By the way, we used to do that too. At one time, it's called the NWC.
Yeah.
At one time, there's such a thing as tripartism that actually worked.
Real tripartism.
Yeah. And that role of that tripartism was to ensure that we got to Germany and not to the US. However, we embarked on this Go for Growth strategy. If you flood the place with foreign workers that are willing to work, you know, I mean, our coffee shop uncles, the cleaners, they work 7 days a week with 1 day off every 2 weeks, and it used to be $700 a month until the last, our effective minimum wage stepped in, the PWP, right? Why is it that people over 70 are being forced to work with only 1 day off every 2 weeks? It's because the people in China who come here are willing to do that, and they are competing directly with them. And this is what, and once you have that kind of labor market, you can forget about tripartism. You can, you can go there as the NTUC representative. You can talk until you're blue in the face about following productivity. Nobody will listen to you.
So this is like importing cane frogs into Queensland to feed on it, and they didn't realize that by importing the Chinese in, we get 2,000 RMB for 8 hours work, and they come to Singapore. This is paradise for them.
Yes, because when they go home, they can buy land in China.
Wow,
they can buy land in China. So can the Bangladeshi people. So can the Indian workers. But our guys have to face the consequences of living in Singapore. So we see this pattern, you know, being echoed therefore in the labor market in Singapore up to 2010 from 1997, right? So the top goes up, the bottom actually goes down a bit, and the middle is flat. Okay, so the same labor market trends, but besides these labor market trends, besides this wage stagnation, there is a larger, more inimical socio-economic time bomb that was created. And I want to talk a little bit about the economics of this.
On the median income, this includes the income of PRs also.
Yes, it does.
Right, it does, right?
Yes.
So our median income is lifted up.
Yes.
Because we've got that group of people, the new immigrants.
500,000 a month.
So if you take that out,
yes.
how would that have
It would have been flatter,
flattened, right? And
Yeah.
also for the.
but we don't have that data.
Yeah, you can't get that.
He doesn't have the data.
No, no, then the.
They have it, but they will not release it.
For the lower income, I think we probably have transfers added, so all the utilities rebates. So without that, I think would have been.
Yes, but what does that show? It shows that if the state is willing to intervene, then we can ameliorate this natural trend. Okay, we don't have to take it as God-given. It is not God-given, right? Very successful democracies and countries like Germany, Switzerland, Netherlands, all the Scandinavians, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and Goh King Siew will hate me for this because he calls them the lousy countries. Australia, Canada, New Zealand, right, will have ameliorated minimum wages and have distributed enough in terms of social protection to ameliorate it, so that their people do not feel left out. So you try and get Trump in Canada, what do you get? You try and challenge Justin Trudeau, he's the polar opposite of Trump. He is what we should be, right? Right now there is a contest in the world, again, since the 30s, between neo-fascism on the one hand and social democracy on the other. Communism is no longer a contender. This fight has started again. It is a long-term fight because of those trends that I've shown you, because of the labor market trends I've shown you. This fight will go on into our children's generation and will be settled one way or another, hopefully, firstly, not the world blowing up, and secondly, with an effective response from the Social Democrats, which so far has been sadly lacking. Okay, so let's go. Yeah.
I'd like to point out what you just said about the government having to, shall we say, maybe look after the interests of its voters. Because when I came out of national service, I was second batch national service, went in 1968. The manpower base had a policy. Everybody has to give priority. Every employer has to give priority to ex-national servicemen. And we join any government organization, we get two increments straight away, ahead of everybody else. Now, all of a sudden now we find labour policy working against Singapore people. Just before I retired, I was running a division of a multinational company here. And the only time I shot my mouth off on social media was to say why I hired so many foreign workers. Very simple. The reason I hired so many foreign workers is because as a manager in Singapore, I'm responsible, I get reviewed every single year on output of my division. When I want to get recruits or trainees, I take them in at 15 from the ITE, I train them for 1 or 2 years, they go into national service. I don't get the benefits of their skills because at 17 they go into national service and they disappear, and at 20 they may not come back again. Most of my marketing managers were foreign citizens. Why? They don't have NS, they don't disappear, don't have CPF contributions, so it adds to my bottom line. I get reviewed every single year by my big bosses on how much I can produce for the company. So every few dollars I can save here and there adds to my bottom line. And it doesn't take very much for a guy like me to figure out, hey, foreign workers make a better deal. So I think that if the Singapore government was serious and say that, okay, NS boys, they go for reservists, they disappear for about a month every year. If you want to hire foreign workers, you have to pay some penalty in exchange. But there's no such rule.
Okay.
So our poor
Tristan, I think the point you're making is quite clear.
yeah.
That the system works in favor of international corporations versus locals and local.
Okay, so the question he raised is that in government military spending, they have not factored in the social responsibility cost of NS men. So for every 2 years that's spent, they should really take on a environment down there to say that for every person who get discharged back into the stream, there should be a distribution to the hirer to cover the 2 years gone missing. It's the same thing with the doctors.
Comment on why they didn't do all these things. Okay, so why didn't these intelligent people do these very plausible and very commonsensical and straightforward things? It doesn't. People who are working, people who are in industry could have told them this, but they did not respond. Why did they not respond? I just like to go back to history and say that the outlook of our first generation bureaucrats, and I'm talking about first generation technocrats, I'm talking about Goh King Swee, Lim Kim Sam, and all these people I know because I work with them, Lim Seong Guan, the first generation perm science, they were used to what I would call intelligent intervention in the economy. They didn't believe the market would solve all the problems. They believed that people who believed that, were just lazy. If they had believed that, they would not have fetched the Jurong SOM and created the JTC. They wouldn't have created the MAS and had capital controls for all those years. They would not have created the GIC, right? They wouldn't have created all these things. They knew that they would not have created the HDB, most certainly. They knew they wouldn't have confiscated all this land, everybody, the estate of the state. They knew that intelligent intervention, and they were the pioneers. They were the global effing pioneers of intelligent intervention. Okay, and this went along with their political ideology, which was social democracy. They were socialists. They were belonging to Bloody Socialist International and were damn pissed off when they were kicked out, because they considered themselves rightly, I believe, socialists. So I would call that the socialism that is called by Roger, the word, because they were pragmatic socialists. So this kind of intervention that you're talking about, discounting NS people, why is it that Switzerland now only has an NS of 9 months, right? And they are right at the forefront next to Russia and all that kind of thing. It's because they are pragmatic. They know, like, okay, we can do this, we can do that. Why have we stubbornly stuck to this end? Because in the interregnum, the policy ideology lost its way. How did it lose its way? There came a new policy ideology from the West called Neoliberalism.
Yeah.
Neoliberalism first formulated...
Market knows best.
The market knows best. Right? So this was first formulated under Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan, and Ayn Rand and all these people, Atlas Shrugged and all this bullshit.
Hayek.
And von Hayek. So essentially they used an ideology to justify no government intervention, and the belief that if you left it to the market could solve the problem better than any intervention. This was the essential guiding principle of neoliberalism, and we followed it hook, line, and sinker.